Hey everyone, I want to tell you about this new spell. It's called the Mossa Vitri Charm, or MVC for short. But first, let me ask you a question. What's the worst thing about living at Hogwarts? Okay. What's the second worst thing? Yeah, exactly. It's the staircases. I mean, There are wide ones, narrow ones, sweeping ones, rickety ones, spiral ones, hidden ones, moving ones. There's a staircase that takes you to a different location on Fridays. And don't get me started on the one with the vanishing step. You have no idea how many times I've had to be pulled out of that staircase just because I forgot to jump. And don't you just hate it when you are halfway to your destination and the staircases start to move? You never know where you're going to end up. I mean, who keeps a three-headed dog in a school? But anyway, this is why I wanted to tell you about the Mossa Vitri charm. I added it to the Marauders map. So now, not only does it show us where everyone is, but if you tell it where you want to go, it'll find the best path and then move the staircases so you get there safely. I know, it's awesome. Plus, I gave it access to the school's directory, and now it'll give us additional information on the people that are in each room. So, the Mocha Vitri charm is based on the model view controller concept that's used by software engineers in the Muggle world. It was introduced back in 1979, the same year one of our brightest students was born. Can you guess? Yeah, that's right. Miss Hermione Granger. But what exactly is MVC? It's an architectural paradigm. Whoa, hey, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any disrespect. But here, let me explain. NVC is a way of thinking about and organizing your spells, or what some people call your code. So it's used so that others can clearly understand what's going on. It can be used with many different languages. It helps your spells adhere to separation of concerns, and it makes your spells easy to modify. For example, when structuring your spells, you separate them into three distinct parts: the model, the view, and the controller. The model section talks to the database, which may also use mongoose. The view section talks to the controller section, and the controller section, which sometimes includes a route section, it can talk to both the model and the view. Here's a flowchart that might help you understand it a little better. As you can see, the user interacts with the view talks to the route talks to the controller talks to the model talks to the controller talks to the view, and the view is displayed to the user. You got it? Wow, that's great. Next, maybe you can help me with an authentication spell that I want to add to the map. But first, I think there's some people that still don't quite get it. I'm just kidding. I got you. We're going to go over this again. We'll start with the view. This is what we've known so far as client side. It is what the user sees and interacts with. The view takes in requests from the user and receives commands from the controller. Let's use the Marauder's map for an example. Normally, it just looks like a blank piece of parchment, but when you tap on it with your wand and say, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good," the map appears. At this point, we don't have to worry about all the other spells that are triggered to make this happen. We just properly interact with the map and it appears. And now, since I've added the Mossa Vitri Charm, if you tap on where you want to go, for instance, the Great Hall, the staircases move and the map will give you a direct path from here to the Great Hall. So let's look at this chart again. The user interacts with the view, some other stuff happens, and the view is displayed to the user. Let's move on to the controller section now. This section is what's known as server side. It actually is made up of two parts, the root and the controller. So the controller takes the requests from the view and sends that request to the correct controller. In our Marauder map example, the route is the part of the spell that hears the request of where you want to go, considers the best path, then calls the controllers of the staircases on that path. Now the controller, it hears the request that's passed along by the route. If it needs to, it talks to the database, performs a function to complete the request, then explains to the view what to render and the data to include. The controller is the part of the spell that moves the staircases in the correct direction and order so that you can get from where you are to where you want to go quickly and safely. So back to that flowchart. The user interacts with the view talks to the route talks to the controller, some more stuff happens, the controller talks to the view, and the view is displayed to the user. Okay, so now finally to the model section. This is also server side. So if the user's request involves obtaining information, the model will receive that request from the controller. The model is the only section that can access the database. Hey, so where does Professor Leon keep the baby's feeding schedule? In a daddy vase. Get it? Get it? I think that's hilarious. But anyway, okay, fine. Back to the model section. So the model receives a data request from the controller. The model gets or adds information to the database using mongoose schemas, and then responds back to the controller. So what's Mongoose? Mongoose is a program that uses schemas to ensure that consistent types and values of data are passed by the model to the controller. It's like a translator between the database and the controller. The schemas are the blueprint of the database. It structures the format of how controller requests data and how the model returns that data. And so it flows. The user interacts with the view talks to the route talks to the controller talks to the model talks to the controller talks to the view, and finally, the view is displayed to the user. Hopefully, this is making a little bit more sense now. It's almost time for class, but maybe it would help if I just showed you. Come on, let's try out the Mossa Vitri Charm. Okay, so here we have the crests for Hogwarts and the four houses. When the user, in this case me, interacts with the view, in this case the map, the view tells the house's route that I want to go to the Ravenclaw common room. The house's route calls the house's controller that is in charge of getting the common rooms. Then the house's controller tells the model to access the database. The model finds the requested data and gives it to the house's controller. The house's controller explains to the view what is needed to render, what it needs to render, and finally, the view is displayed to the user. But all I have to do is tap on the Ravenclaw crest, and here we are. It's auto magic. And we can see the directory of the other people that are in the Ravenclaw common room. Let's look at Luna's file. So this time, when I tapped on the map, the view heard my request for Luna's data. Then it sent it to the house's route. But this time, the house's route called the house's controller that is in charge of getting a person's data. The house's controller then told the model to access the database of the person that I clicked on. In this case, it was Luna. The model talked to the house's controller. The house's controller then told the view how to show us the information, and the view showed it to us. Think you're starting to get it? Hey, it looks like Luna's file is incomplete. Maybe later I can show you how to add and update a person's data using that plus button in the bottom corner. But right now, we're being called to the Great Hall for an assembly. Something must be up. Well, this time we'll tap on the Great Hall. The Great Hall route will tell the Great Hall controller. The controller will talk to the model. The model will talk back to that controller, and the controller will talk to the view. The view will display where we need to be. So let's go. Wow, there are a lot of people in here, not just students and staff, but alumni too. I think we better put the map away now. We can visit the other common rooms later. But until then, mischief managed. Thank you for watching my lecture on Model View Controller. I'd like to give a special thanks to Leon Noel, the 100 Devs mods and community, and everyone who listened to me practice and research and talk about and explain MVC and this lecture. Check out the Mossa Vitri Charm on my GitHub. Thanks, and see you next time.